Sifter for the ear.
News, interviews, reviews, cinema, TV, streaming. Action.
Hi, y'all. This is Jerry Williams, a.k.a. TV Jerry. Ronnie Apperson has been selling movies on eBay since 1997, and he's run video stores in Phoenix, Seattle, and even a Hollywood video in Hollywood. He's now opened his own store selling DVDs and Blu-rays at Your Town Treasures Collectible Mart on Hull Street Road in Midlothian. It's booth number 153, Ronster Balmer, and he let me know he has a huge horror selection just in time for Halloween. He doesn't have a Facebook page or a website, but I'll include his Instagram at Ronster Balmer on the webpage for the show at tvjerry.com.
So it was this really interesting, mysterious ritual that happened every single year from 1949 to 2009. So it happened for 60 years.
That was today's guest, Andrew D. Kaplan, talking about a mysterious event that happened every year on Edgar Allan Poe's grave. It's part of Kaplan's extensive 3-hour documentary on the famous writer called In Search of Edgar Allan Poe, which is now streaming on PBS. We'll talk about how he got so deep into Poe's life and work, including a visit to Richmond's Poe Museum.
Sifter Review of the Week.
The Lowdown on Hulu. Ethan Hawke plays a Tulsa bookstore owner who sidelines as an investigative journalist. After a man kills himself, Tim Blake Nelson, the trail to his death involves a corrupt politician, Kyle MacLachlan, and more. In many ways, this is a typical neo-noir, but what helps it stand out is the characters. In addition to Nelson, who's quietly quirky, Hawke creates a guy who's more a mess than a success, and there are others who add to the appeal, including Peter Dinklage. Creator Sterling Harjo is best known for his enjoyable series Reservation Dogs, and this has a darker approach with a witty lining. He's created a pulp world with plenty that goes wrong, and engaging characters to keep it interesting. I gave The Lowdown 3 out of 5 stars. So Andrew Kaplan, welcome to Sifter for the Ear.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Now you have a PhD, Dr. Andrew Kaplan. What's that PhD in?
PhD is in mass communication from the University of Maryland, and I got it back in 2008. Kind of a scholarly degree on journalism and all different kinds of issues dealing with media studies, mass communication.
This is not your first documentary, and this is your third in a series on the same subject.
Exactly. So we have a series, In Search of series, about 19th century American writers. So the first film we did is on Henry David Thoreau. It's 45 minutes. And then the second film is a 3-hour film on Walt Whitman, In Search of Walt Whitman. And this is the most in-depth film ever made on the poet.
Okay, let's move on to Edgar Allan Poe. And we got somebody who's got a special interest in that subject.
Surprise guest drop-in.
Oh, hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
Footnote.
Chris Sempner is the curator at the Poe Museum in Richmond and was also in the documentary. First off, how did Andrew get in touch with you?
He just called up one day, as I recall, and just said, I'm working on a new Poe documentary, and I want this to be a thorough documentary. This is going to be just another one of these that's maybe 40 minutes or half an hour or even 90 minutes. He wanted to get the whole story, which is something that nobody's been able to do before because there's just so much. He shared some information about his previous documentary about Whitman. I looked at that to see, sort of, is this guy for real? And turns out, yeah, he was for real.
So how was your experience on it?
Oh, it was fine. He came out here and spent the day out here, got to tour the museum, got to meet the cats. Of course, you can't leave without meeting the cats.
Right, yeah. And did you learn anything about Poe that you didn't know before the documentary?
Oh, I didn't know that somebody could actually make a 3-hour-long documentary about Poe and still feel like you still want to know more.
Right.
'Cause I think the longest one before that I'd seen was the hour-and-a-half one that was on PBS. So Andrew was able to double that and still kept you involved. And there's a beautifully visual documentary too, except for that one guy from Richmond who kept talking.
Well, what did Andrew bring to Edgar Allan Poe?
He was able to get accurate a lot of places before, even if they're big budget productions, have never been all that accurate, and they have to abridge things, or sometimes they don't use the most reliable sources.
And what about the Poe Museum here in Richmond? Are y'all going to have opportunities for people to screen it?
Yeah, maybe in the future. We don't have a theater here, so we'd have to go somewhere off site or show just a segment of it
Right,
because
right.
we've got a garden.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like a drive-through movie theater, except with mosquitoes.
yeah.
Yes, Chris was wonderful to work with. One important part of this film is the narration that's on camera because to me that makes a documentary much warmer. We were able to film those narration sequences at the Poe Museum, which is considered the foremost Poe-related sites in the United States. We used different rooms in the museum as the background. And I thought that was really important. We didn't just want to have it in some, random place. We wanted it to be significant. And Chris definitely gave us a great interview and was a good resource for us, if we, had some specific Poe-related questions. We do have our DVD and Blu-ray at the Poe Museum gift shop. They have a very nice gift shop, actually. It was a pleasure working with Chris.
Chris, well, it was a pleasure having you drop in too, Chris. Thank you so much.
It's good to see you again, Andrew.
Nice to see you, Chris. Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye. So, one of the things you mentioned, Andrew, was the on-camera narrator, and I think I know who that was.
Yes. Someone I know pretty well.
Yeah, right here on the screen. You said obviously your degree was in mass media. Did you have an acting or an on-camera background, or did you decide, hey, I'm just going to do this, or have you done it before?
No, I don't have any of that professional training. It was important to have a host, like a real person, not like an AI generated person, who could really invite the audience member to go on this literary journey, for the on-camera host to really invite the viewer to be immersed in so many of Poe's works. We enact so many of his works, whether they're poems, short stories, and just as important, literary criticism.
You mentioned no AI, no modern technology, but it looked to me like a lot of the historical portraits had been touched up. They were all very clean. The complexions were nice and smooth.
Right.
So you did use some AI or some kind of technique in Photoshop or something?
Well, Photoshop did. Well, see, there's a difference between making it as it was meant to be seen
Right.
versus that it wasn't. That's the idea. It's like restoring something to the natural. I mean, in reality, time marches on and things get grimy, things get dusty, things
Sure.
get faded.
Yeah.
So using, let's say, for example, Photoshop technology to, restore colorations, but not in any way creating something that wasn't there. It's just restoring what time has taken away.
So now you mentioned voiceover casting. I know you had a lot of voiceovers in there. Talk about that process and how you decided on how Poe should sound, because obviously nobody knows how he really sounded. Did he have a Southern accent?
That is such a fantastic question. And that's a question that I asked. I did ask experts that. There was a very clear consensus on that question. So first of all, like the worst thing you could do is have an actor have a deep Southern accent, like
Sure.
from Mississippi, because that would be ridiculous. That's totally different.
Yeah.
What we were really going for was the Virginian accent. And we knew he had a Virginian accent because that's where he grew up.
Of course, he also grew up in England, so there was some formative years with delivering English.
He did. But he was still around his parents, his foster parents, who would have had a Virginian accent. And then, of course, he comes back in 1820 when he's about 10 years old and grows up in Richmond, Virginia. So we found an actor who we thought had a really good voice, and we really thought his accent sounded pretty genuine.
Yeah,
So we worked with Paul a lot to try to get a really good performance, and we thought he did an excellent job. And then we found an actor who really has a gift for storytelling. And we said, oh, we have to use you. You're so good. His name is Stephen. And we said to Stephen, we have a lot of Poe's short stories in the film. We would like you to be the one to actually read passages from the short stories and dramatize them. And I thought he did such a good job with that because it wasn't over the top, which
Right.
is so easy to do.
Right.
But yet it wasn't too little either. Because that's a big part of the film is
Sure.
familiarizing the audience with some of Poe's most famous stories, which they may not be familiar with or may not have read for many years.
Now, you mentioned the music earlier, and of course, all the music was classic songs. I don't know if that was because you just wanted to stay period, if original music was not a budgetary option, or what was that decision on using a lot of classical music?
Well, to me, the most important aspect in a documentary, and I would almost say in a narrative film, is the music. I think it's something that can really touch a person's heart and soul in a way that words often cannot reach. We used over 40 pieces of music. I wanted to mention Stephen Foster. He's often considered the father of American folk music. He's somebody who really inspired us musically. And of course, he was roughly contemporary with Edgar Allan Poe.
Sure.
The kind of music that he made is the kind of music we went for a lot of it. It had the right sound, it had the right vibe for what we were going for. But we ran into some practical problems. There were a couple of pieces by Stephen Foster we really wanted in the film, but we couldn't find any musical pieces, those pieces that we could license. Actually, the actor I was telling you about who portrayed Edgar Allan Poe,
Right.
guess what? He's a great pianist.
Uh-huh.
He played Swanee River, and Paul actually, performed and recorded Swanee
cool.
River. I actually knew somebody else. He's actually a really good friend of mine. He's a really good piano player. So he recorded some Stephen Foster songs for us, like Beautiful Dreamer and Jeannie with the Light Brown Hair.
Now, there are lots and lots of illustrations, I'm assuming, from books and articles and manuscripts from back in the period.
I'm so glad you asked that question because this gives me a chance to say a little bit about illustrations. And that's actually a really important part of this filmmaking process. One of the great joys in researching this film and making it is it really gave me an opportunity and members of my team to explore the really amazing illustrations that are out there about Edgar Allan Poe and his works. A lot of people and critics might consider, let's just say roughly speaking, 1880 to 1920 as like the golden age of illustration. And you had some of the great illustrators out there, and it's very attractive to an illustrator to want to illustrate Poe's works. I mean, they kind of cry out to be illustrated.
Right. Near the end, it talks about that classic mystery where every year on Poe's birthday, this mysterious person shows up. Have you ever witnessed that yourself, or you just heard about it from other people?
I never witnessed it myself, but one of the really wonderful things about doing this film is I got to meet Jeff Jerome, who was the curator of the Poe House and Museum in Baltimore for like 35 years. And Jeff is the one who first witnessed this in approximately 1976. This would, of course, be a very mysterious person coming into the cemetery where Poe was buried every year on Poe's birthday, which is January 19th. In like the wee hours of the morning, and he would be wrapped in black, and he had like a scarf over his neck and face, and he would bring flowers, he would raise a glass of cognac and do a toast, he would kneel in front of the headstone. So it was this really interesting, mysterious ritual that happened every single year from 1949 to 2009. So it happened for 60 years.
Wow.
Amazingly enough. Yeah. And so while I personally didn't witness it, I got to be in the spot where Jeff would witness it every single year. And he's the one that brought the attention of the world to this, because this was a private thing.
Sure.
From 1949 to the mid 70s, nobody really knew about it for the first 25 years. So it's really kind of an interesting story.
So what's next for In Search of Edgar Allan Poe?
It's going to be airing on Maryland Public Television during prime time, which we're really excited about. What's next is we're really hoping to have a lot of PBS stations air it. And also, it'll always be available in the PBS app.
So anybody can go on the website and...
Absolutely. Anybody can go on their smart TV, and they probably have the PBS app on their smart TV. If they don't, it takes 10 seconds to download. So our program, starting October 25th, will be listed there to watch. But we have it on a lot of platforms like Canopy or Tubi or the Roku channel. Something that I really would like to emphasize is when you make a film, whether it's a narrative film or documentary, it's so important that you have full respect, time, and energy and some budget for that fourth stage, which is marketing and distribution. And you have to also be very patient. It's a slow process.
Right.
You kind of have to figure out who your audience is and how to best reach them. And that's a really, really, really important part of the filmmaking process. I just wanted to emphasize because I think that's often understated. So we're hoping to have it on different stations with PBS. And we're also doing like Poe talks and Poe screenings. We hope to get the word out about Poe and maybe kind of inspire people to want to read more of Poe's works.
Other than promoting In Search of Edgar Allan Poe, when you got some spare time, what do you like to watch on TV or streaming? What have you seen lately?
Oh, that's a great question.
And tell me it's something
Well,
fun like Gilmore Girls and not another
right.
heavy documentary.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's see. I absolutely love the studio,
Yeah, yeah.
which is that's just a real comedy. And there's a lot of like self-deprecating humor and, it's very imaginative, the scenes they come up with. So that was really a lot of fun to watch. I watched Friends and Neighbors recently, with John Hamm.
It took some time to get going, but it got good by the end.
Absolutely. I thought that told a really interesting story. It's sort of hard to categorize that one. It's sort of part comedy, part satire. It definitely has a satire element and definitely part mystery, thriller.
Sure.
It's something very different from what's out there. I thought that was really, really well done. And I recently saw Baby Reindeer.
Yeah, that's an oldie, but yeah, that was a
Yeah.
pretty wild thing too. Yeah.
I tend to watch things that have been out there for a while because I only watch one series at a time.
Oh,
And
okay.
I sort of give my undivided attention to it and think about it. And then I'm ready for the next thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Andrew, this has been fascinating and interesting. I learned more about Edgar Allan Poe than I ever knew before. And I want to wish you good luck on it and the next one, hopefully, whatever that'll be.
Well, thank you so much. And it was an absolute pleasure and a delight being here with you. That was a nice surprise when you brought Chris on. That was fantastic.
Great.
I was like, oh, there's Chris.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that was really super. And it was so wonderful talking to you about filmmaking and Edgar Allan Poe. And this was a real treat.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was Andrew D. Kaplan, who wrote and directed the 3-hour documentary In Search of Edgar Allan Poe, which is now streaming on PBS. I'll have a link to the PBS site where you can watch it on the webpage for this show at tvjerry.com.
Coming soon. In theaters.
Bugonio. This marks the third collaboration of Emma Stone and director Yorgos Lanthimos, and she plays a CEO who's kidnapped by two men who think she's an alien. Nouvelle Vague. Richard Linklater's previous film, Blue Moon, is still playing, and this new one is about revolutionary filmmaker Jean-Luc Godard and his making of Breathless. Lesbian Space Princess. Last week was Zombies and Drag Queens. This week is an animated adventure about a space princess and her conflicts with the straight white Malians. Anniversary. A close-knit family is torn apart by a radical new movement, starring Diane Lane and Kyle Chandler. Violent Ends. A revenge thriller set in the Ozarks with Billy Magnuson and Kate Burton. Mary J. Blige, For My Fans, a documentary featuring the singer in her first Madison Square Garden show. Die, My Love. Jennifer Lawrence plays a writer and young mother who's slowly slipping into madness, also with Robert Pattinson, Nick Nolte, and Sissy Spacek. Speaking of Pattinson, there'll be special showings of all 3 Twilight films this week. And Halloween 1978 will also return.
TV and streaming.
There's not a whole lot new stuff streaming this weekend, and the only big thing is Talamasca, The Secret Order, on AMC. Writer Anne Rice's story about a secret society that tracks supernatural beings like witches, vampires, and werewolves. And Slow Horses has Season 5 on Apple. You can subscribe to this podcast on the usual platforms or go to TV Jerry, click on the podcast tab, and there's a link to enroll. I'll be on vacation next week seeing 5 shows in New York City, but I'll be back in 2 weeks to feature the Pocahontas Reframed Film Festival and comedian filmmaker Joey Clift, who created an animated film called Pal. This is Jerry Williams. Thanks for listening.
For more Sifter, including literally thousands of reviews,
Visit tvjerry.com.
That's a wrap.